Good afternoon, welcome back to our coverage from AWS reInvent 2017, live on twitch.tv/AWS. My name's Ian Massingham, I'm in the technical evangelism team at AWS. And for this next segment, I am excited. So we're launching services here at AWS reInvent, as you know, in a segment format called the Launchpad, which you'll see right down here in front of us. And this is what we have coming up next. So before we get on to what it is we're going to launch, the first thing I want to do, obviously, is ask my guests that have joined me on stage for this next segment to introduce themselves. So, who are you and which team at AWS do you work on?
Sure. My name is Amir, and I'm a product manager for Amazon Web Services.
Great.
And I'm a part of the team that is launching the service.
Yeah, don't reveal it just yet, okay?
No,
okay, we want the big reveal in a second.
Not yet.
Great stuff.
I'm Jonathan Weiss. I'm a senior manager for the development team based in Berlin that is working on this and also works on OpsWorks.
Okay, great stuff. Yeah, so OpsWorks is built in Berlin, right? I remember that from my visits there. Great stuff. So the big question, what are you announcing today? Can you obviously launch the service live on twitch.tv and also describe a little bit about what the service is as well, please?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So today we're announcing a new service called AWS Systems Manager. And this is a new service that is meant to help our customers gain operational insights and take actions against the resources and applications. But the trick is doing it safely and at scale. And the premise of what we're doing is quite simple. We know that maintaining an application is a hard job, right? Doing it right and at scale is even harder, which is why we're releasing Systems Manager, so customers can learn from our collective experience in AWS of how to do things the AWS way.
Okay, that sounds really interesting. We'll dive a little bit more into that in detail in the rest of this segment. I've been asking everybody that's launched with us this question. I'm going to ask you the same question. So, at AWS, we always work backwards from customers, right? About 95% of our services come from direct feedback from customers about what they want us to build next. This is featured quite heavily in this morning's keynote with Andy. So the first question I have for you is, can you describe a little bit about the kind of feedback that you were getting from customers that led to this creation of AWS Systems Manager? What was it that inspired you to build this service?
Sure. So this case is no different. We work backwards from our customers, and while talking to our customers, we've been getting three common themes or three common challenges that kept coming up in literally every sort of conversation in the context of operational excellence. The first one being, an application could be powered by multiple AWS resources,
yep.
right? It could be built by EC2 instances, Lambda functions, RDS databases, load balancers, list goes on, right? And it is very hard to map those resources to a particular application tier, application component, even an environment. It's very hard to do this matching. The second theme or challenge that kept coming up was, let's assume I know what resources power my applications. It's, where do I track them? How do I make sure that my application and the resources that power it stay healthy? Because all these insights are spread across multiple different consoles, and an application is a living, breathing thing. It needs to be, what's the word, cared for, right? Taken care of.
Yep.
So our customers were looking for a way to look in a centralized place for getting all those insights about their applications to make sure they stay alive and healthy. The third theme was about, how do I make a change? So let's assume something went wrong, right? Something went wrong in my application. It is no longer healthy. What do I do then? How do I, and very, very quickly, very, very precisely, find out what's wrong and take action. And taking action across multiple types of resources, and even my application itself. How do I do this in a safe way, the AWS way? What we usually get is, how would you do it?
Yep, yep. So you're collecting some of the knowledge that AWS has developed from working with customers on these kinds of problems and then making them available to other customers. So it's a little bit of an opportunity for customers to take advantage of developed best practice, right?
Yes, yeah. We like to refer to this as the pursuit after operational excellence.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And is there a particular type or category of customer that you think is going to use this service more than others, or do you think this is generally applicable to the majority of AWS customers? How do you see that?
We think it's applicable to everybody that needs to operate their AWS resources, right? So it's a very broad range of customers people who essentially have something running in AWS, be it an EC2 instance, load balancers, SQS queues, RDS databases. If you have something running in AWS, you want to understand what is it actually that I have, right? Like especially if you have larger, more complex applications, it's hard to get an overview. You want to understand how is it actually doing, is it healthy, is it available, is there any problem I need to attend to? And then you want to respond to these, right? So in general, you could say IT operators, IT generalists, so people who are operating their resources. This is kind of our target audience, and we think this product will help.
But horizontal across all sectors and segments, from large enterprise to startups in different verticals.
Exactly, right? Like in a small startup, it's maybe the same person that is the developer, it's maybe the classical DevOps engineer. In a larger enterprise, it might be the IT admin, the IT operator in that sense. Essentially, everybody that today needs to understand these problems that we were talking about. How can I respond to operational issues?
Okay, so that's a really good overview of the rationale for building the service and a little bit about who you think will use it. Can we dive into a little bit more detail now? And can you tell me a little bit more, and tell customers, of course, a little bit more about how exactly AWS Systems Manager makes it simpler for customers to operate and manage their resources and infrastructure?
Yeah, so the core idea is we want to help customers reduce the mean time to detection and the mean time to remediation of problems, right? We want to shorten that time that it takes you to figure out there is a problem with my infrastructure and how do I respond to it, where is the problem exactly, what is the issue, and then how can I then, as soon as possible, address the issue. Yep. In order to do that, what AWS Systems Manager does, it kind of has three main building blocks, right? Like the first one is, as Amir hinted to, typically applications are very heterogeneous, right? Like you use components or a resource from multiple services. So the first big feature that we bring to the table is we leverage AWS resource groups that helps you group and organize your application. So you can define a collection of resources that represent your application, that is across services. And once you define this resource group, you can then have AWS Systems Manager show you relevant metrics and events and logs and basically information, operational data about these in the same interface. So you can see, oh, it looks like my web servers have an issue. And then the third component is you now want to respond to it, right? So we, in the same console experience, integrate a lot of operational capabilities like run command or patch manager.
Okay, now this is really interesting. There's a question off the stream here, Jonathan, from Ferox, actually asked how this service differs from EC2 Systems Manager. So there's a little bit of similarity in the naming, but what I've taken away from what you've already described is it's grouping different resource types. So my EC2, my RDS, my collection of other AWS services that might comprise different components of my overall architecture. So that's how it differs from EC2 System Manager, which is surely in the EC2 domain. But then you talked about integration between the two things, so can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually kind of relaunching EC2 Systems Manager as part of this service launch where we breaking it out from just being restricted to EC2, if you like, combining it with the resource group service and adding what we call insights and dashboards to it. So we take the operational capabilities of EC2 Systems Manager and using them as the third component of taking action on your resource group. So we extended certain features in Systems Manager, like automation, to be able to act on a group itself. Okay. So you can have group-related metrics and operational data, and then you can use a group as an input to these services to take action.
Fantastic. Hope that answers your question, Ferox, on the stream. So next question I've got is about customer benefits. So, I mean, for me, it sounds a lot of this is a lot about visibility, simplification, and being more responsive, enabling customers to execute or exhibit those attributes in the way in which they manage their applications. Is there more to it than that, or are those really the core benefits as you see them?
Again, like Jonathan said, we're trying to reduce the mean time, or the time it takes you to detect problems, and the time it takes you to react to those problems. And the way we're doing this is by presenting a collection of tools to help you take both reactive action and proactive action. So reactive action could be, I want to make sure, I would like to restart my web application, right? I would like to run something in react to an event, in reaction to an event. A proactive action would be, I would like to patch my instances. So we give you the collections of tools to make sure you can do those tasks in the most precise way and safely. And of course, across AWS services, not just EC2 instances.
Understand, great. So we've done quite a bit of talking. Can we see the service in action? Can you, I know you've got your laptop in front of you there, so can you show us a little bit about how users would take advantage of the service and use it?
Sure.
Great. Great stuff. So can we have a laptop feed, please?
So, the new AWS Systems Manager service is available under Management Tools. So you can navigate there yourself and try the service out. In addition to AWS Systems Manager, we're actually also announcing today AWS Resource Groups. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the Resource Group service, we are launching its next iteration, which comes with a new console and a new public API. And we'll also demonstrate the service here. And the important thing is, this new Resource Group service, AWS Resource Groups, is heavily integrated into Systems Manager, as you'll see. And this is the starting point of the entire experience. You first define the building blocks of your applications, and I'll demonstrate a little bit how this is done. And then you start to augment them with insights from multiple service integrations and native integrations that we offer in Systems Manager. And at that point, you can start remediating. Assuming there's an operational issue, you can start taking action against those collection of resources, but as groups. So, without further ado, this is it. You have some informational data in the first page, and you'll see an expandable left bar. As I mentioned before, this is heavily, the new service, the new AWS Resource Group service is heavily integrated into Systems Manager, which is where I'll start. So, by navigating to find resources,
looks like the network here at the conference
the network is not cooperating. Do we have
did you pick up the
Ethernet?
Ethernet cable? There's
I did not, but that is a good suggestion.
We're definitely live if you're watching on Twitch. Okay,
yeah.
This was not pre-prepared
So
demo.
while we're waiting for the network to set up, I can maybe explain a little bit what Amir will show. Oh, actually, it's already there.
Actually, we can continue. So, this is quite simple, really. I go in here and I can find resources. I can do a search query where I define a subset of resources that I'm interested in. To define a particular subset, define maybe the front end of my application, define an application component, define an environment. So let's say I'd like to see all EC2 instances, all RDS database instances, S3 buckets that are a part of my test environment. Simply inf test and view query results. What's going to happen now, the service is going to reach out to those services and present the subsequent, the list of resources that match this particular tag criteria. And I think the Ethernet connection is not taking. Let's see. Yes, let's see if I can make the internet connection work again.
So while Amir is trying to fix the network, so what we will see in a second is we will basically return all these resources from all of these services that were selected, and we'll show you them so that you can introspect them, see is this actually the group of resources that I was meaning to select. You can save this search as a new group.
Yeah,
right?
I saw that at the bottom of the console there,
exactly.
save as group. So
you
that
can
allows
say
you to instantly create a new group based on a search.
Yeah, so you can say basically this search represents my production application. And once you save this group, you can view insights or operational data related to this group that we will show you in a second.
Yes.
Right? You can see data from AWS config, from CloudTrail. You can view CloudWatch dashboards that are related to this group.
Yep.
In order to understand what is the health, what is the status of this application, and then potentially take action, right? Like you can use automation, you can use run command, patch manager, state manager, a lot of these services that were bundled in EC2 Systems Manager in order to then take remediative steps on your resource group.
Understand. Looks like we've got the demo back, so.
Yes, it's still working on Wi-Fi, so we'll do our best. So as I can see here, I ran the search query and I got the subset of results that represent this particular environment, right? The test environment. So I see I have some EC2 instances. If I look at the columns, I see I have the name of the resource and the references if I click them to EC2 in respect. And here the same for RDS. I have the state of those resources, what service they're originating from, the type, and of course, an identifier, assuming they have one. And at that point, I have the option to save this collection of resources as a resource group. I can give it a name. And I can, of course, also tag it. Let's assume this resource group is a part of a larger whole. This is a part of my mobile app. So I can say, name mobile app 1. And when I'm going to hit save, what we're going to do in the service, we're actually not going to save the subset of the resources that you're seeing here. We're actually going to save the search query. That collection of questions that we have here, of give me all EC2 instances, all databases, all RDS databases, and S3 buckets that meet this particular tag criteria. And the reason I mention this is because this is a dynamic, living, breathing resource group, which will, every time you reach our service, you'll get the most up-to-date list of resources. That's really important
with the API-based access, right? Because you may have tools that are integrated with that API, and those will be continuously up to date.
So whoever builds on top of this service will get the most up-to-date list of resources. So because of things like auto-scaling groups, an application could scale up and down very easily,
of course.
And other resources as well. So you always get the most up-to-date view of your application, or the resources that power your application. So as soon as I hit save, I have this under Save Resource Group. I have my front-end application, my back-end application, some existing resource group that I made in advance. And once I have this resource group, I can start augmenting it with insights and decide whether to take action. Under insights, I have multiple insights which we'll go through, starting with the built-in insights. Now, as I mentioned before, we have some integrations with other services like Config, CloudTrail, Personal Health Dashboard, Trusted Advisor, CloudWatch. I will briefly go through them to show some of the insights that you can get on a resource
I'll just say at this point that by doing that quick demo there, you've answered about 8 of the questions that are in the stream. People asking about integration with config, integration with compliance features. One of the questions that we've not answered though is about integration or the difference between resource groups and CloudFormation stacks. So if I'm creating resources with CloudFormation, how do I integrate those with this service? Do I tag them, or is there another mechanism that I use for that?
Yeah, so CloudFormation has a feature where you can tag, pass tags to the CloudFormation object itself, which will be passed down to all the members.
All the resources in the stack,
in the stack. And if you use the same tag to define your resource group query, then you will have a resource group that represents your CloudFormation stack. So you can use the resource group console and API and functionality to introspect your CloudFormation stack. You can view the related insights, compliance information, CloudTrail information, and so forth, and then also pass the resource group, for example, to automation to then execute a script on all EC2 instances within the CloudFormation stack, for example.
That's great, excellent stuff. Okay, so is there anything else that you want to show in the demo?
Sure, very quickly we'll just go through some of the insights we can get from the integrations with other services. So we integrate with config to show config rules. Of course, additional details in a tabled form. We show config history, so we can see the state changes of the resources and configuration changes over time. We got an integration with CloudTrail. So again, with respect to that particular resource group, we can view the most recent API calls that were made to the members of that particular resource group. And same goes for Personal Health Dashboard, Trusted Advisor. An additional thing that is important to mention is we also have an integration with CloudWatch dashboards, which is good news for existing CloudWatch dashboards customers because they can reuse their existing CloudWatch dashboards as is directly through Systems Manager.
Great, I really like this service, I think it's great. So we're almost out of time. The very last question I've got is availability, pricing, how do customers get started? So can you just share a little bit on that very quickly before we need to wrap up this segment?
Sure, so both AWS Systems Manager and the new AWS Resource Group service are both free of charge.
Okay.
So you can get started immediately by navigating under the management tools and starting to use the service. And also for Resource Group, you also have a link in the top left navigation bar.
And we're available in 14 regions as of today, so you can immediately get started.
Fantastic, excellent. So congratulations on the launch. It's been great to have you on Launchpad with us.
Thank you.
We're going to end this segment now. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes with a discussion around the new Amazon Neptune service that was launched in this morning's keynote, so stay tuned for that. Thanks guys.
Thank you.